Yo, what is up? What's going on? How's everybody doing? Thank you for tuning in to another DnL&x Fitness live stream show. Let's go. All right. It is, it's Friday. I don't know why I thought today was Thursday. Jesus, where did the time go? Oh my goodness. Bruh. I'm tripping. I really thought today was freaking, what's going on my phone? Oh, there it is. Okay, making sure we're working over here. We're good. Here, we're live and we're rolling. Yes, today is Friday. I thought today was Thursday. My bad. But yeah, we're here. We're rocking and rolling. We're going. We are good. And hopefully you're having a good day. And if you're not having a good day, well, then I'm going to have to let Mr. Child break it down to you because you can't have a shitty day on a Friday. But if you do, just remember this at all times.
Oh, you're having a bad day? Did you die?
I got shot.
But did you die?
As long as you didn't lose your life or die or become unalive, you are still here, still ready to go, and still to make a change in your life as the best as you can. Because trying to change everybody else's life ain't looking too shabby, let me tell you. Yes, sir. And today we got a good show lined up for you today. But just in case you didn't know, we are simultaneously streaming on YouTube, Twitch, Kick, and Rumble. Yes, sir. If you're on YouTube, do me a favor. Thumbs up, hit that thumb up, that like button, be greatly appreciated. As you can see on the screen, that'll get the algorithm going and get this message put out so you can hear what is going on, because you need to know about the message that I'm giving you, because yes, AI is finna dominate, and it looks like we're about to hit into Communism 10.0 when it comes to AI taking over. You thought communism was bad at the Bolsheviks revolution. Wait till you see what communism look like when AI get a hold of that ass. Oh my goodness, it's not gonna be good, bro. It's gonna be sad. Yeah. It ain't gonna be good, bro. It's not gonna be good. It's not gonna be good. But hey, at least you can say you've been warned, and I told you, and I put all this stuff in your face and tried to show you and even let you know the next economic, in my humble opinion, the next economic crash or correction, as sort of they say, and hopefully you know to hustle, grind, and do what you got to do so you can be ready and prepared and not scared to capitalize on all of this ish that's about to come. So hopefully you was ready and you was prepared and not scared. But with that being said, if you want to contribute to today's show, Cash App and the Venmo's right there. I gotta fix that part of my screen. I didn't notice that was a thing. See two hands over here? That's crazy. Anyway, Cash App and a Venmo, bam, right there. It's going to be Cash App Daniel2888, Venmo Danny-Daniel-00. If you want to contribute to today's show. And today we got a good show lined up for you. We're only going to be able to tackle two topics of today because of time, but that's okay. We're going to hit you with the economy segment of the show. We are going to talk about the dominance of, what are we going to talk about the economy segment of the show? I forget. Oh, yes. We're going to actually look at people who have lived in communistic environment states, their actual lives. Instead of hearing it come from people who did research, we're going to actually hear from people who lived it. We got people from Cuba who lived it, from the USSR that lived it, a person living in Vietnam is living it. So we're going to see it from different perspectives and see what the actual communist system looks like and what are people saying about it. And it's rather interesting, I might say, to get a good idea because we're already heading in that direction. So what better way to get an understanding of it, of what it looks like when a communist regime was dictating it versus when a AI regime will be a communistic rhythm in the future on what we're moving towards. So you might as well get a good understanding about how it works now. And we're going to see if it benefits people, hurts people, or if it's a neutral and is beneficial for both sides. We're going to see. I don't know. It might be good. It might be bad, but we're going to find out. Well, then after that, we're going to go into the AI segment of the show. The AI segment of the show, we're going to show basically how AI is just basically about to dominate the landfill of every single thing that we do, and ain't nothing we can do about it.
God damn.
Yep.
God damn.
Yeah, that's basically it. AI is going to dominate. We're going to look at different areas it's going to be dominating in. Specifically healthcare. About to put a really big foot in the ass of healthcare. So we're going to take a look and see how healthcare is going to be going to see if we're going to be getting checkups and getting our annual physicals done and our enemas done through freaking doctors and stuff like that. Oh my God, no. Oh, that's not going to be good. That's going to suck. Sheesh. Some of y'all gonna get your annual checkup from your doctor. They're gonna put that glove on and be like, bend over, and you gonna be sitting there looking like,
oh my God. Wow.
Yep, I have to look at you sideways and be like, bruh.
You win it. Hey, Lord.
Yep, that's you. But anyway, so we're gonna look at that and see exactly where we're headed with this AI stuff because Sam Altman, he's actually gonna be on one of the last sides that I play today. And when I tell you, when I tell you, if if it if this meme had a face, it would be Sam Altman. This is right here. If this soundbite had a face, it would be Sam Altman. Listen, this is the a picture, basically Sam Altman on this soundbite. This what it would be.
FYM. Fuck y'all motherfuckers, you know?
That's basically it. I mean, at the end of the day, that's basically what it was at the end of the day. So we're gonna look at that at the very end, but we're gonna go over and see how AI is gonna be dominating the world, the job market, and healthcare predominantly, and just see other things that's been happening. We're also gonna take a look at some of the immigrants and migration and some of the stuff that Elon Musk and his team had found out about how they been letting illegals in and all sorts of crazy stuff, and look at the numbers and how crazy they are and what they're basically were trying to do and implement in order to change the voting stuff, which we already knew about, but it'll be good to see and hear it coming from people who did research on it. And yeah, we're going to look at all those things as well. And we're going to see Elon has got hit with a fine from the people over there in old Europe, hit him with $120 million fine, basically trying to make Elon bow down. Let me show you a quick glimpse of it real quick before we dive into it here. I'll show you a quick glimpse of it right here. Right here shows Elon, if you can see right here, Elon has just, the EU just fired a £120 million warning at X. They say it backfired immediately, but at the end of the day, it shows right here that they hit him with a warning, basically saying, it's the first ever punishment under Digital Services Act. Basically trying to tell him, bro, you need to go ahead and bend the knee because we shutting people up over here and your stuff over there on X be doing a whole lot of talking and we ain't trying to hear that. So if you keep playing these games with us, we're going to basically have to lay the smack down on you. So just go ahead and get ready.
Prepare the meat so doom.
Yes, prepare to meet your doom because that's what it's going to be. So you better be ready. And I mean, on the cool, Elon only hit him with 2 words. He actually did. I think his 2 words, if I'm not mistaken, if I could find it over here, I think Elon responded back and he said, "Shut up, bitch." I think that's what he said, but I'm not sure. We're going to dive into it later on today and figure it out because we got to, get through all this, which is going to be interesting and fun to see. So, with that being said, man, we got a good show lined up. So let's go ahead and get crack-a-lacking on this show. Yes. All right. So to get started, we are going to get into the economy of the show. So let's get our little sexy thing up in here to welcome us into the segment of the economy of the show. Come on, baby. Come on.
Welcome to the economy segment of the show. Enjoy.
I'm telling you, boy, if you ain't seen Subservience, go ahead and watch that movie. That's gonna be me, bro. I'm gonna be a menace when it comes to these AIs. Honestly, I want a clone. I want like 5 bad clones. Like some of my clones I'm gonna have 3 Snow Bunny clones. I'm probably gonna have like 10 clones because I can change them out. I'll be having like threesomes with my clones, all sorts of stuff. I mean, there's gonna be 3 of my clones that look something like this. You know what I mean? And their ability to talk, they're gonna be mutes. They won't be able to talk. So I'm not really care about how they, I don't want to hear about their day and all that. They ain't gonna have a day. They gonna be me. And then maybe my other clone gonna look like this.
Welcome to
Yeah, buddy. You know what I'm saying? And then we just gonna go trickle down the leg. We're gonna have, we're gonna have the Ling Ling version, we're gonna have the Indian version, we're gonna have the Black Ghana Nigerian version, we're gonna have the Ethiopian version, we're gonna have the Brazilian and Chile and Argentinian version, we're gonna have the Guatemalan Honduran version, we're gonna have the Canadian version, we're gonna have the Australian version. She gonna be like, no. He gonna have them all, but it's gonna be a great time. Yeah, because I think the clones will have a better feel to them, if you know what I mean. You know what I mean? I guess they say the AI version might be like all metal and stuff, and I ain't trying to be dealing with no metal. It sounds rather uncomfortable. So if you just get you a clone and limit its ability to like think, you know what I mean, and you'll be good to go, you know, you'll be self-serving, and then you can like have her help you raise your surrogate children and all that good stuff, you know what I mean. But I digress. I could be overthinking, but in a perfect world. But with that being said, getting into the economy segment of the show, we do have to pay attention to something that is actually recent, that has hit the internet airways, dealing with the President Trump. I must say, Trump has been actually, as of recently, I think it was as of today, no, as of yesterday afternoon, Trump was given the authority in another country, and I'm not sure what country this is. I can't tell by the flag. I should know my flags, but forgive me. But he was given authority over in another country, and I wanted to bring this to the attention of everybody because it's very, very important that we all know this, the new authority that Trump was given. And it seems like he's over there somewhere in Africa. Let's take a look and see. Trump is over there with our brothers over there in Africa for sure. So let's go ahead and take a look and see exactly the new authority that has been given upon Trump to wield over in the country over here in somewhere in, I would say, Africa. Let's go ahead and hear it. Here we go.
On behalf of all black people from all over the world, we would like to give President Trump, the greatest president of all time, our most valuable nigger pass. With this nigger pass, he can say the N-word as many times as he wants, anytime he wants. Thank you very much, and have a nice day. On behalf of all black people.
Let's go. Trump has officially been given the authority to say the word ninja wherever he want to go. Oh man, I wish I had a soundbite for that one. I don't. I need to get the soundbite for that one. But yeah, man, Trump has been given the authority to reign supreme over there on the motherland. To basically, what they trying to say is what they would say here in America. They would say he's invited to the cookout, but I guess Africa took it a different direction. They was like, we don't want you at the cookout, but you could use this word along the way. And he's like, okay, I'll take it. So I just wanted to put that out there because I was surprised when he was given the new authority to do such thing over there. So I was like, hey, well, shout out to Trump. You know, he has he's done a lot, and this is a new one. I've never seen any president actually have this approval. I don't even think Obama had this approval. I guess they assumed that Obama had it, but I don't think he ever utilized it. So we're going to see if Trump actually implies this one. Then next time we see him speaking in public, I'm kind of curious to see. It's going to be interesting. You know, he's going to be ninja this and ninja that and then ninja everywhere he goes. So we're going to see how that goes. You know what I mean? He's already, very outspoken. So, given that he's been given the green light to go ahead and speak to his fellow brethren, we're going to see that man turn a whole new leaf on American history. So shout out to him and all of his great things he shall accomplish in the future. And hopefully nobody comes up across him and, tries to check him because it's beneficial. He's been given the authority on the greatest stage of all. So we'll see how that goes. So, congratulations, sir. Congratulations. Good for you. Good for you. Good for you. Bruh. All right. So next thing we have, all right. So diving into the actual economy segment of the show, we do got to we're going to look at a video here from someone who actually lived in good old communism lifestyles. And we're going to take a look at to see how this Cuban dude reacts or how he experiences a supermarket over in the States, because coming from Cuba, at least what they say, living in Cuba, it's not all guns and roses, or should I say hunky-dory, or rainbows and unicorns. There you go. It's not all rainbows and unicorns. When they have like certain items inside of a supermarket, they can just run dry at any point. And sometimes, well, not sometimes, but a lot of the times, they don't have variety. If you want chocolate milk, it's like Nestle. That's it. You want like jelly, it's like Schmuckers, one flavor. You want ice cream, it's like vanilla, Bluebell, and it's just like rows of it. And it's probably not exactly the brands, but you get the idea of what I'm saying. So for him to come to America and see a supermarket and was like, bro, you got choices? It was just like, damn, it's like that. So This is one image of communism I want to show you from somebody who views it. We're going to see it from different angles and different views, and come to my surprise, it's not all like this. To be actually surprising, some people had a grand old, good old time out there and miss it, but we're going to look at it coming from different countries. So this is like this guy's perspective from Cuba. So we're going to see what he basically reminisces on and see how he goes. So this is like a little video. We're gonna have to interject in between. It's somewhat of a lengthy video. We ain't gonna watch the whole thing, but I will skip through it to kind of just give you the intro backstory and to bring you up to speed and everything, just to see exactly how he is, you know, reflects on what he sees on a different life from a communist to a capitalist country. So let's go ahead and get started. Let me get this. We'll get the introduction first, and then we'll hit it off. So the introduction, they're going to talk about how we live within the pandemic, and then we're going to see exactly how said individual lived life. So let's go ahead and get this pulled up and put the banner on the screen. And here we go. Let's start this video off real quick. Here we go.
Finding daily essentials we all need to survive. We went to go get some hand sanitizer, some toilet paper. Shelves were empty. It's like 4 per person.
I went to go get some eggs and some Lysol. Nothing on the shelves.
I can't believe what people are doing inside. Shelves are empty. It's like we're going to, I don't know where.
All right, so just give you a backstory. They're basically just saying like they are people who are. This is back when the pandemic happened. All right, as you probably do or don't know, they're speaking on the pandemic and just basically saying like what we experienced in the pandemic. Well, people would live that 24/7, 365, and even though what we had in the pandemic was still better than what they had in communist Cuba, you know, it's just to give you a little backstory, to give you insight. So now they're going to give you a run through of how some of the locals live in a communist country, and this is Cuba. Okay, we're going to go to USSR and Vietnam along the way down the line, but for right now, this is where we start. So let's continue. Okay, I gotta make sure that we don't get no copyright for all this dang music they got playing over here, so I gotta make sure they don't hit us with no copyright strike. But let me get past this ad real quick, and then we'll get straight into it. Here we go. All right, here we go. So let's see.
People know Cuba as the
Yes, let's take a look at it. Let's continue. My fault, my bad.
forbidden island of salsa dancing, mojitos, baseball, and communism. But there is another side to Cuba most tourists and most outsiders don't get to see. For decades, Cubans have struggled to find basic necessities in markets every single day. It's not uncommon to find lines for hours for one single product. In fact, it's normal. So let me take you inside a market and try my best to explain it. Today, we're going to talk about...
And you know, people always wonder like how if somebody is like, whenever you have like a poor demographic of people, how they always end up fat. And it's usually from, if you ever understood, eating like a high carb diet, breads and pastas and flour and tortillas and, you know, rice and just high carbs. You know, carbs, if you don't work them off, they're going to turn into sugar and fat. So when you remove protein out of the diet and you just give people, number one, processed foods, and number two, high carb meals with a very small amount of protein, they're going to get fatter, because protein is what helps you put on muscle, repairs and builds your muscles, and carbs are used for energy for you to burn off whenever you work out. So you always see these people who are poor or don't have as much, and they always end up fatter. It's because the food that they're eating isn't for their muscles. It's, you know, to pack on, it's basically to fill them up. But since it's carbs, carbohydrates are going to turn into sugar and fat over time if you don't burn them off. So there is no actual proper nutrition going on there. So it just turns them fat, which is a very, very horrible situation to do to a group of people. But let's continue. Here we go. All right, move out the way, sweetie. Here we go. So this is what the store looks like.
Pero Their shelves are normal, and the products you do see are almost always not necessary. And when you find something, they only have one option of it.
So I'm trying to do this as secret as I can. I'm going to just show you guys this aisle. The only product on this aisle is this Nestle Milo shake. Here it is. So it is $4 for this box or can of Nestle Quick. That is the only thing that you'll see on this shelf. It's just this product.
When you do find something, the prices are insanely high. When we filmed this, the average Cuban salary was around $40 a month.
These are peppers, and I'll show you how much this is. A can of peppers, and it's $15.
I hope you like hot dogs, because that's all the meat that they have here today.
Only hot dog meat is the only meat that they had for that day. Only hot dog meat. That is brutal. That is disgusting. I mean, just to feed people. I mean, over time you learn what hot dog meat is made out of, and it's not. It's just a bunch of like leftover meat scraps at the bottom, and they shove it in the tube with a hot dog, and there you go. You got hot dogs. You got Franks. It's not even like a portion of a particular animal. It's just like all the scraps and scrapes, you know, compiled into one, and you just shove it in, and there you got hot dogs. So it could be in. You know what? Let me just double check myself. What are hot dogs? What are hot dogs made of? Let's get that figured out for sure. See, hot dogs, main ingredient nowadays, primary muscles of beef, pork, chicken, or turkey, or a combination of meat and poultry. Exactly. And they just grind them all up together, and then they just push it in the tube. So you got like it's basically like the leftover skunk scraps at the bottom, and they just feed it to you, just like some slop, like a pig, which is just ugh. But I can't lie though. I still like a hot dog every once in a while. It ain't all that bad. But let's continue with this video right here. So here we go. Let's check it out. Here we go.
Se fue la corriente. Oh my God, se fue la corriente. Oh my Lord.
As you can imagine, the scarcity of food items is normal in Cuba. But Yoel's normalcy was about to change dramatically.
Do you want free? All right, so Yoel's about to come to the States, all right? He's about to get a crash course in what a different supermarket looks like as far as variety and things go. So we're going to skip forward and see Yoel's reaction. Yoel, like Yoel Romero. All right, so here we go. So we're going to see that Yoel they pulled up to an Aldi's. If you know anything about an Aldi, this is Aldi's right here. Oh, Aldi's. You know, usually the Aldi's I've seen, they're always small, but you know, actually, I've only been to one Aldi's. It was small, and they charge you a damn quarter to use a shopping cart. Now, granted, they give you the quarter back, but they charge you a quarter for the shopping cart. I guess the homeless people can't steal them. That would be my assumption. But let's continue, and let's see what happens when Yoel gets to a supermarket that actually has a variety in the States that is not as communist as Cuba, because it's like we walking down that line very, very slowly but surely. Here we go.
Yoel, grocery shopping for the first time.
Mira, y la abuela rica. Tienes una guía para entrar a la tienda. Guía para entrar a la tienda. A ver. Oh, mira la madre. Mira para esto como el manzano. ¿Cómo estamos mucho? Son diferentes estilos manzanas. No hay limón, coño, el limón. Mira, wow. No son cereales, ¿no? Son cebolla. Es una cebolla. Vamos pelota. Esto me da a mí para 20 días de comida. Oh my God, como hay carne y queso, madre.
I mean, to have a reaction just to a supermarket for the variety of stuff that they have is just unfathomable. You know, coming from someone who's never experienced anything other than this as a supermarket your whole life, but to come from what he came from what we seen earlier, just one variety of something, and it's normal for a store to run out of something and stuff like that, just to see him just kind of like sit back and be like, dang. And did you notice that when he walked in the store, he grabbed a fruit, he grabbed a fruit, orange and lemon or lime, and he grabbed the vegetable, he grabbed the onion. So like, even though he still went to, like, he went to the fresh produce, which granted, that's probably the first section or first side they walked into was probably the produce section. So there's that. I could be overdoing it. Plus it's Aldi's. Aldi's not gonna have too much of a processed section, but it does, but not as much.
Tan siempre venir aquí a comer. Como él lo hace. Y esto que él dice Mari, que esto no es nada con lo que se ve. Han destruido el país.
So he said they have destroyed our country. Him coming to the realization, thinking back like, damn, like, look at all this you have. And she even mentioned to him, she said, wait till you see a bigger store. Because she took him to Aldi's. Aldi's is small. I think later on she takes him out to a Costco. But he's sitting here like thinking back like, damn, bro, they doing us dirty back home. Like, this is what people got on the other side of the world. Or I guess I say in the States, because it's not technically the other side of the world as far as Cuba and America. But you get what I'm saying. And he's just sitting there having a whole reflection like, we over here going through hell and y'all got all this. And and then sad part is a lot of stuff get thrown out and thrown away and things like that. They slightly go bad or whatever, stuff like that. But that's got to be a shitty feeling to sit here and see that. You know what I mean? To him just reflecting on like all the basic simple things that they can't get, and they run out of bread and meat and cheese and stuff like that, or if they even get meat and cheese, to be quite honest. Because remember, she said earlier that day the meat that they had was hot dogs. He was looking at varieties of different meat. That lady mentioned that day the meat they were getting were hot dogs, and there's no telling how long those hot dogs stayed there, unless they, ran out of hot dogs and then got a new influx of new meat, maybe. But it's yeah, that's shitty. But let's keep going.
Leche.
Esto parece un cuadro poner la pared. Yo lo pongo en la pared así.
Just to sit there and see him thinking, just shaking his head like, wow, why they do us like this? Like, why is it like this? Like, why? It's that's a horrible feeling to go back and think. And he's gonna say something here in a second that's actually extremely profound. I don't know if it's in this store or the next store, but he's gonna mention something. I don't know if he's gonna say it yet, but it's really messed up when he says it. But here we go. Here it is right here. This is what he said. The saddest is that my daughter told me her friend couldn't have a birthday cake because there weren't any eggs. Like, that is shitty. That's horrible. Could make a birthday cake just because they didn't have any eggs. You know how easy it is we take for granted to get a birthday cake? You don't want to make a birthday cake. You just go buy one. You order one. Hell, you get the damn picture you want on the cake. You know what I mean? And he's sitting here thinking like his daughter friend couldn't have a birthday cake because they simply didn't have eggs to make one, which means they couldn't even buy one within the country because the country don't even have eggs to sell cakes to people. So they just couldn't get one, period. They couldn't go to a supermarket or store to get a cake. You couldn't order one. Like, that's just, that right there. I was like, dang. Little kid couldn't have a birthday cake. Not even one made for him. Not even just something. So then you like, how do you, I don't know. Just like when you see this, and this is one, of course, like I said, we're going to look at other communist countries. Or at least people are going to talk about different ones, but just look at Cuba from this perspective and how this dude is looking. And this was, and since he has a mask on, this was 4 years ago. This is 4 years ago. So like right out of the pandemic when all you clowns were scared of a sickness, but you would go to eat at a restaurant and take your mask off, eat your food. Or some of y'all would like keep your mask on and eat the food, you know, stick the fork under your mask. And then when you had to go pee, you put the mask back on, you go in the bathroom and take the mask out. And yeah, you know what you idiots were doing. Anyway, I digress. Here we go. Let's continue. Watch a little bit more of this and we're going to move on to the next one.
Era el cumpleaños de una amiguita. No había ni huevo para hacer cake. Nada. No puedo ni pensar en la cantidad de cosas que...
Real quick, this meat right here is $8. Remember earlier we saw that Milo, whatever you want to call it, that Nestle thing. That thing was $4. Straight garbage. Nestle's over here making money off these communist countries. So Nestle out there making Milo or Milo, for $4. And then the peppers in that can, the peppers was $15. And this piece of meat right here is $8.
Nada más sí, como no puedo estar aquí. Me voy. Esto va a nuevo nivel.
Esto es diferente tipo de mantequilla.
Tipo de mantequilla.
She said these are different types of butters. He said different types of butters. Like, remember, they didn't have a choice on what they could pick from. It was like you get all of one thing. There was no variety. They had zero variety. They just had one. He said different types. You get types of butter. You get different types. Like, that's crazy. Now, all of this plays part into what I kind of actually went over something yesterday, but pay attention to everything that they're mentioning, because remember, the meat was trash. He mentioned they didn't have any eggs, so eggs, I guess, were hard to come by. I don't even know. Remember, he was like, earlier, he was like carne and queso. He was very excited about meat and cheese. I'm not sure if dairy is a big thing that they can get in certain countries, but like, again, different countries have different views on communism, so which we're going to see. But this is the point of view of Cuba.
Vámonos de aquí, que aquí no quiero estar más. Esto es lo último. ¿Dónde están? Ahora algún día puedan ver lo que estoy viendo yo. Aquí está hablando del huevo. También el huevo va a ser un cake, miren. Está triste. A veces no quiero ni comer, en serio. Yo no estoy metiendo mentiras, a ver las lágrimas no son de salirme, pero me da tristeza que hay tantas cosas que uno puede tener aquí y allá no hay. Ojalá que un día todo esto esté en Cuba y podamos comprarlo así como lo compra todo el mundo. Y los niños tengan esa Ese helado, ese yogur.
Hoping that children can have ice cream, yogurt, and meat that we saw. Boy, that is rough. Growing up as a kid and not having ice cream, yogurt, or certain kind of meats. And that's just a regular lifestyle for them. You know what I mean? It's just a regular life. And then and you know, he couldn't even like take it. He was like, bro, we gotta get up out of here. He's like, I can't keep looking at this shit. Because in his mind, he thinking about his country. He like, bro, you ain't got eggs to make a cake. We had hot dogs for meat. That was our protein, with some hot dogs. And, you know, there's different kind of hot dogs. They only give them one kind. So you can only imagine, you know, they're going to give them the most shittiest hot dog. And hot dogs are already shitty to begin with. So it's like, damn. Yeah, I think, man, that's got to be some just evil stuff to do to a whole country of people. It's just beyond evil. To sit here and just like screw over everybody's childhood and existence. Again, but that's just in one country. Let's see. We're not going to go to the Costco part, but I mean, you kind of get the idea in his reaction, all that good stuff. He ends up buying milk out of a store, I think out of Costco. He ends up buying milk out of Costco. Out of all things, he ends up buying milk out of Costco. I'm like, bro, why you buy milk out of Costco? Actually, I could show you a picture of his reaction. This is his picture of his reaction in Costco. Like, look at him. He like, damn, look how many things are here. Look at this. It's all filled with things. Like, he just like in awe. Like, but shout out to him, man. Greatly, he think things are going better for him, hopefully. All right, next thing we're going to look at is we're going to hear somebody speak on, we're going to hear somebody speak on their parents. They're going to speak on his parents growing up in... was it Russia or USSR? This is Mike Israeli, whatever his name is, the bodybuilder guy or the science lifter or whatever the hell you want to call him. He's going to speak on his parents growing up in a communist country, and you're going to hear what he says about them and how they had an experience, basically speaking about them going, or one of their teachers going to America and coming back and hitting them with some straight misinformation. But then later on, when they were able to travel, they were able to go over there and see for themselves and then realize, like, we got to bounce. We got to dip. We can't be here anymore. It's just fleeing the communist country to a capitalist country, seeing what the difference of life was. But again, like I said, it's different in each person. So everybody didn't have the same experience. Everybody's experience turned out to be different. Because usually when you hear it, like I've always heard, it's always bad in communist countries. I found some good ones, and we're going to get to those as well. But let's go ahead and check out this one right here real quick. So here we go.
Leave Russia. Growing up in the Soviet Union in the 70s and 80s like my parents did was literally like a plot line in The Matrix. But my mom had a teacher that was in the Communist Party, and she was allowed to travel. Because she came back from America and was proselytizing the students on how terrible it was. And she's like, did you know that in America, lunch costs as much as a pair of shoes? The students were shocked. And my mom was like, is that because lunch is expensive or shoes are cheap? The teacher stopped her and she goes, you know, Elena, you're asking a very dangerous question. When someone says that to you, you know you're living in the Matrix and you know people are lying to you. As soon as they were letting people leave, my parents were like, we're getting the fuck out of here.
Why did you guys leave Russia?
Growing up in the Soviet...
You're asking a very dangerous question just because you thought outside of the box. Like, hold on, are shoes expensive or are they just cheap? So you're going to try to... The teacher came back and hit him with a lie. You know lunch is expensive as shoes. And it's like, well, are the shoes expensive or are the shoes cheap? Because that just don't make no sense. Shout out to his mama for thinking outside the box, calling that bullshit out. Shout out to his mama for that one. But as soon as they got the opportunity to leave, they was gone. They straight up dipped. They ran up out of there and found out they need to bust a move. And they was like, nope, we're done. We are done. And they was like, nope, we can't do this no more. And they left. And they left. Now, there's another guy right here we have right here. And this is somebody said they asked their grandfather about life in the Soviet Union. All right, so we just heard that last guy. He spoke about his parents being in the Soviet Union, and he had a story to give. And with him, I'm kind of iffy when he talks. You know, the Mike Israeli guy, I'm kind of like, I'm iffy when he speaks because I've seen stuff with him where he said that he could lie with a straight face. So with the last guy we just watched, I kind of take what he says with a grain of salt because, I mean, he is a true candidate of living in the Matrix because he'll look at you and tell you a lie and throw your ass under the bus and have you believe in bullshit because he don't care about lying. He said it himself. So take that with a grain of salt. This gentleman right here, we have an older gentleman, a grandfather. Somebody said they asked their grandfather about life in the Soviet Union, and he's going to speak on actual factual experience of what he's experienced in the USSR, or excuse me, yeah, the Soviet Union. Now, remember, if you don't know anything about the USSR was from what? I know the Bolshevik Red Revolution was 1917. Stalin was in the USSR. I don't know if he started in the 50s. I believe, or whatever. But I always say the USSR is from 1917 and it dissolved in 1991. That's how we'll look at it. When the Bolsheviks revolution started, the Red October, all the way up until 1991 would dissolve. That's the time frame I view the USSR, from the violent part all the way up through to where they, was not as violent, but was communistic the whole way through, or whatever, if that makes any sense. So we're going to look at this gentleman right here. And somebody, the guy said he asked his grandfather about the Soviet Union, and we're going to see what he says about it, because we just heard what the last dude said. But like I said, that last guy, he gave a perspective from his parents. So now we're going to hear a perspective from this guy. Now let's just take a stab. Let's take a guess. If we had to guess this man's age, how old could we say he is? We could say, what, 70s? We give him 70s, maybe 70s or 80s. We give him 70s. Let's say we agree he's 75. All right. So he's 70. We'll say he's 75. If we take 25 years off of him, he would be 50 in the year 2000. If we take 30 years off of him, he would be 20 in the year 1970. And we take 8 years off of him, he would have been 12 in the year 1962. Right? Yes, that's correct. So just taking that in, he would have had a decent time to understand the upbringing in a USSR Soviet Union. He would have that would have been his whole existence, his whole lifestyle, and he saw the dissolve of it coming out of it in the 90s and how he felt about it transitioning from no longer a communistic state to what it is now. So let's hear what this guy has to say about this, and let's take a look and see what his experience was. Here we go.
Образование это золото было, товарищи, это было золото. Врачи были замечательные, лечили хорошо. Очередей не было в больницах. А образование, так это вообще тоже золото было. Бесплатное, медицина бесплатная, образование бесплатное. Это все бесплатно было. Вот это самое и главное Советского Союза, авторитет большой.
Okay, you're not going to understand what he's saying. You probably can't even see the subtitles. So I'm going to go back and start it over, and I'm going to read it to you as he speaks. So it says at the top, I asked my grandfather about the life in the Soviet Union. And at the very bottom, he starts talking. It says, medicine, education, it was real gold. Comrades were gold. Here we go.
Медицина, образование, это золото было, товарищи. Это было золото.
Doctors were wonderful.
Врачи были замечательные, лечили хорошо.
He said the doctors were wonderful. They treated people well. He said there were no queues in the hospitals.
Не было в больницах. А образование, так это вообще тоже золото было. Бесплатное, медицина бесплатная.
He said education was real gold too. He said education was free and medicine was free.
Образование бесплатное. Это все бесплатно было. Вот это самое и главное Советского Союза.
That was the main advantage of the Soviet Union. Medicine and education were free.
Авторитет большой. Я сейчас больницу разогнали, медицины нету.
He says, and now hospitals are being closed. There's no medicine, and now there's no education.
Образования нету. Нету ж абсолютно. Медицина.
He says, so since the Soviet Union has been gone, it's been a negative experience is basically what he's saying. So from his perspective, at his point of view in living in the Soviet Union, from what he said everything was good from his upbringing and his experience. Education was free. The doctors treated you well and it was free. You got medicine when you needed. Everything was good. He says now hospitals are closing. There's doctors don't treat you as good. There's no medicine. The education ain't free. The medicine ain't free. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I could feel what he's saying on that. That actually makes sense, because now in the US, when you hear how much medicine and medication costs and the shit's expensive, you're like, whoa, what the hell is going on? Like, why is this stuff so expensive? Why is it like this? Why? So his experience and his perspective on the USSR, Soviet Union, communist life, his experience sounded like it was good. I mean, of course, you got your pros and cons, your gives and takes. But from what he's saying, comparing back then to now, he's like, at least, you know, we had good doctors, medicine, and free education. At least we had free healthcare and free education. Like, that was a great thing. And that's a very powerful thing, to have free education and free healthcare for your people. So from his perspective, comparing then to now, he's like, he would rather live it the other way around than what it is today. All right. Next one we're gonna look at, we have a girl who is younger. I don't think she experienced the USSR, Soviet Union, but she's gonna speak on a story from what she heard. All right. So we've already heard somebody speak a story from what they heard, but and we kind of see what their perspective was. We're gonna hear what this. Actually, I don't want to hear what she got to say. No, we ain't gonna hear her. I don't want to hear her talk. Nah, we ain't gonna hear her talk. Cause hashtag I don't believe all women. Anyway, so we got this guy right here. We have a guy who is an expat from Texas. Hello, buddy out there from Texas. Round of applause to the Texan. He is a retiree living in Vietnam. Now, we know Vietnam is a communistic society. This will be a video from 7 years ago. Now, I've checked him out, and even currently today, he still lives in Vietnam with his wife. And we're going to hear what he has to say about living in Vietnam, a communist country, coming from the America, Texas to be exact, and moving to Vietnam, a communist state. And so let's see what his experience has been leaving a capitalist society, going to a communist society. Usually you hear it the other way around, but now we're going to hear it the flip side and see what his experience is and if it's a positive or negative. So let's go ahead and roll the footage and check this gentleman out. So shout out to this guy right here. Let's see his experience going from communist to going from capitalist to communist. And there's his wife. Here we go.
I'm here today with my wife, Rhea. We're at Vivastar Coffee in Saigon, Vietnam. We're making this video today to explain why we moved to a communist country.
Hi, I'm JR. Life.
First of all, the only experience we've had with the communists in this country is when we came through immigration. And I'm not sure they're communists. I think they're just a bunch of guys in green suits that are doing their job. Like my friends, I'm sure you're wondering why a guy from Texas like me, a gun-toting, flag-waving Texan, would want to move to a communist country.
That's actually a mighty good question, I might say. There, gun-toting, flag-waving Texan out here, man. We're all about that life right there. You know, we still ride horses, and hay kind of rolls around the roads late at night or early in the morning. So, you know, we're going to be shooting any and everybody and everything. And we do wear chaps and spurs, and we jingle when we walk. You know what I mean. Here we go, man.
I live here in Saigon, Vietnam, and I love it. Well, it's simple. One word. Freedom. In the U.S., I got tired of the intrusive nature of everything in the culture. Even my neighbors. My neighbors called the police on me for drinking a beer in my front yard after I mowed the lawn. I just had all of that I could take. Everything there and everybody there is in your business, and I was really tired of it. Since we came here, we're supposed to file a report with the police in our precinct every year, and the police are supposed to come by and visit us. We've never seen them. They've never been by. We've been here nearly 6 years, and other than seeing the traffic police on the corners, we don't see any at all. Other than a few things here.
All right, so as we can see so far, he is actually liking a communist country over a capitalist country. And he said that in the capitalist country, or coming from America, he said everything is getting so intrusive and invasive, which I could feel him on that. I could actually agree with that one. How everything feels so intrusive and invasive, and you know, your neighbor is calling the cops on you just because you had a beer. I don't know. Maybe he could be fabricating a story. Maybe he could be telling the truth. I don't know. But like I said, this is 7 years ago. This is how he felt. And he said they've been there for 6 years. So 7 years ago, been there for 6 years. Now he's been there for like 13, 14 years. So you can only imagine, you know, the times changing and how things are looking now. However, he has a positive experience in a communist country, which is something you don't ever hear. And he even spoke on certain things about how they're supposed to report to the police all the time and they don't even come. He doesn't really see, you know, law enforcement out on the streets as much or anything like that. He says he feels freedom in a communist country. He said he feels freedom out there, which is interesting because we always hear the polar opposite. Now, this is Vietnam's communism. And that was one thing I wanted to point out, because whenever you look at communism, we always look at certain places and then we just see the bad in it. You know what I mean? We always see like, oh, there's a communist country, bad. But then when you do some research, you know, you see people living in these countries and you want to find out what their living experience is. You know, maybe the locals might have a little bit of a harder time because he probably came over there on a pension and stuff like that. So he had money to live off of while he was there. He didn't just start, you know, as a local trying to come up in the bottom rankings and, you know, work his way up in different classes of life. So that could play a big factor in it too. However, him living in both countries, he's able to give you his honest opinion on how the countries feel. So far, it's an interesting take to see somebody actually call the communist country a freedom feeling as opposed to what he was living in America. But let's continue.
People are pretty much free to do what they want. Criticizing the government on Facebook or something is probably not a good idea.
Okay, all right. There you go. All right. Criticizing the government on Facebook is probably not a good idea. So, even 7 years ago, a communist country, you better not talk shit about the government because they will come to this. So, even 7 years ago, you got to keep your mouth shut about the government or... Shut up! So, he even made that clear himself. He was like, even in the internet webs, they still gonna find out that you talking that nonsense, and they gonna have to come and find you and be like, look here, bro, what was that noise you were talking? Shut up! So that's actually a so that's something that we can all agree on and understand, that across the spectrum in a communist country, you can't talk crap about a government in a communist country. As far as like China goes, people are afraid to talk crap about China's government. You'll never hear a Chinese person talking crap about their government in China, regardless of how bad they get treated. He made that clear in Vietnam. You don't want to do that. Like, nah, you don't want to go on the internet webs and talk that noise. So there's a constant flow, but so far his experience with communism in Vietnam has been great. He's got clearly he got a wife out there in Vietnam. But let's continue, see what else he says.
But you can grab your passport and leave anytime you want. You can go anywhere you want. There's no restrictions on the citizens traveling. There's just not many restrictions at all. We just don't see much of a legal presence here. You don't see lawyers' offices on every corner. It's a pretty interesting place. I think that if Westerners had a chance to visit Vietnam and see how it is, I think they'd like it. It's very open, the people are very friendly, and they're very happy here. One of the things I noticed is that when people go on vacations here, they really like to go on vacations inside their own country. I've asked a lot of people, hey, where would you like to go on vacation? And they say, oh, I'd like to go to Da Nang, or I'd like to go to Da Lat. They don't say, I want to go to Europe, or I want to go to Paris, or I want to go to New York. They love their country here. They like vacationing in their country. They like spending their time and their money here. I think overall that Vietnam is going to be a wonderful place long into the future. It's true Vietnam is a communist country, or at least it's a one-party country. Capitalism here is really taken over. Everyone's selling something to everyone else. There's stores, shops, street vendors, factories everywhere. This place is totally capitalist, although they probably wouldn't admit it. Even the government is slowly divesting itself of its own companies and own socialized companies, like the oil companies, the electric companies, water companies, and such as that. They're turning them over and privatizing them. I think that in the future, Vietnam will be a one-party country, but it's going to be a very capitalistic one-party country. He's got a good education.
Okay, so that's interesting. So he's saying that even though it's a communist country, he's like, there's capitalism all over here. People are participating in free markets. They're able to sell things and put up vendors and spots and do their thing and make money and stuff like that. So he's calling it 7 years ago. He's like, they got capitalism running pretty rampant out here. You know, he said they're coming out of the communist way of living and going into the capitalist way of living, which is interesting. Very interesting, which is something that I've always wondered, because I always wondered this, that whenever economies, or I guess when the American economy crumbles over here in the West, you know, they have something called emerging markets. And I was always curious about what an emerging market meant. I've never understood it, but I kind of had an idea. I mean, it sounds like it's in the word, but it makes me wonder if society crumbles, or not if, when society crumbles over here in the West, as far as communism goes, or just the state of world taken over via AI, when that happens and you have emerging market companies, does emerging market companies, or not companies, countries, you have emerging market countries. My question has always been, with emerging market countries, does that mean these countries that were under a communist society is slowly but surely emerging out of the cycle of communism and into the cycle of capitalism, emerging as the new market of capitalism, as the West falls down into the system of communism, kind of like a cycle that, you know, goes in a circle? Because now the West has always been the superpower of capitalism for so long. Now it's like it's time for it to go down into a communist cycle, and for these new markets to emerge out of the capitalist lifestyles into a out of the communistic lifestyle or society into a capitalist society. I've just always been curious if that's kind of how the cycle rolls its way around. So would it be smart to go to emerging market countries to escape the communist society? Because when that transition hits, you know, when the transition hits, going from one society to another, going from a capitalist to a communist, from my research, it's not pretty for the first, 10, 20 years. It ain't pretty. It's very violent, and it's god awful. That's just what my research has granted me. Anytime it has to change over from a capitalist to a communist society, it seems like it's a bloodbath. And then you rein in on a communist society for some years, and then when it has to turn over, maybe it's a positive thing. However, we'll find out here in the future, or in the next couple videos, people in the USSR, how they enjoyed Soviet Union, but when it dissolved, to them it was hell. Coming out of the USSR communism, it turned into hell, because it was just a rough period where all the countries turned into little republics. But we'll look into that here in a minute. But that's just a thought that I had. I'm kind of curious on how that works. If emerging markets would be the way to go whenever your country goes downhill. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see for sure. Not going very well. Good. Let's see. Lauren, a grand jury declined to indict Letitia James yesterday. Letitia James. Should I know your name? Trump's revenge and retribution expeditions are not going very well. Good luck. All right, Letitia James, grand jury. All right, let me pull this up real quick. To re-indict Letitia James. Letitia, what did you do? Grand jury declines to indict New York Attorney General. Well, of course, that's New York. New York ain't looking too shabby. Let's see. She received her bachelor's. Let me see. I'm doing my quick research. Okay, let's see. Let me see. Reacts to grand jury refusing to re-indict her. Rejects new indictment against Letitia James. Okay, grand jury rejects DOJ's attempt to revive fraud case. Okay, well, let's go ahead and pull this up then real quick. Okay. Interesting. Federal grand jury refuses to re-indict the Attorney General Letitia James alleged mortgage fraud on Thursday, rejecting the Department of Justice attempt to refile the case just 10 days after a federal judge dismissed the earlier case based on the unlawful appointment of the U.S. Attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia. Federal prosecutors failed to convince a majority of grand jurors to approve charges that James misled a bank to obtain favorable terms on a home mortgage loan, according to sources. Okay, let's go ahead and let's go ahead and play this video real quick because we got a quick reporting news. We're gonna have to take a step back real quick. We're gonna take a look at this video to drop this brand new news we just got. Well, this was yesterday, but we're gonna look at this today real quick. We're gonna derail the show real quick, and we're gonna take a look at this. All right, so let's see what this says real fast, and then we'll go off and go back to what we're talking about. So here we go. Let's hear this out real quick.
A grand jury refusing to indict New York Attorney General Letitia James on a charge of mortgage fraud. It's the second time in 10 days that the case has been set aside. And our senior political correspondent, Rachel Scott, is here with the latest. Good morning, Rachel.
Rebecca, good morning to you. And this is a major defeat for President Donald Trump. Sources tell ABC News that a federal grand jury in Virginia refused to indict New York Attorney General Letitia James for alleged mortgage fraud, rejecting the DOJ's attempt to refile the case just 10 days ago. A federal judge dismissed this same exact case, finding that the appointment of the president's handpicked prosecutor, Lindsay Halligan, was unlawful. Halligan has never prosecuted a case. Letitia James, of course, successfully brought the civil fraud case against President Trump before he was elected to a second term. In a statement, she says, "As I have said from the start, the charges against me are baseless. It is time for this unchecked weaponization of our justice system to stop." And it is worth noting the administration has made this accusation of mortgage fraud against several of the president's perceived political enemies, including Democratic Senator Adam Schiff. The DOJ could try for a third time to indict James, but of course the question is whether or not it's been successful after this has been tossed out now twice.
Yeah, and it's so rare for one to get tossed out in the first place.
Exactly, and now the second time, will they try for a third?
A grand jury
Okay, all right. So the reason was, let's find out. Let's go back to the reason though. The reason they said they tossed it out was because of this right here. So let's check.
Unlawful. Halligan has never case just 10 days ago. A federal judge dismissed this same exact case, finding that the appointment of the president's handpicked prosecutor, Lindsay Halligan, was unlawful.
That's why they threw it out. They found out it was unlawful because he handpicked the federal prosecutor. He handpicked a federal prosecutor, and it was unlawful for him to pick the prosecutor, according to the judge.
Halligan has never prosecuted a case. Letitia James, of course, successfully.
She's never prosecuted a case, and that was going to be her first one.
Brought the civil fraud case against President Trump before he was elected to a second term. In a statement, she says, "As I have said from the start, the charges against me are based."
Okay, interesting. All right, so we'll see how this pans out going into the future. But there's the reason why they did it is because of the handpicked prosecutor, and it was going to be her first case, and they said it was unlawful for him to do. So we'll see how that pans out, and I'm curious if this has a domino effect going on towards what is her name, Omar. You know what I mean? I'm kind of curious because Omar is in a big fraud situation right now over there in Minnesota. So if this one over here in, what was that, Virginia or the New York Attorney General, whatever they said it was, if she got off, but that's because of the fact of a hand-picked prosecutor, which is why they said it was unlawful, so they didn't move forward with it, then I'm wondering if this has any weight behind it to where the Ilham Omar will have grounds to be let off if they pull criminal charges on her for the fraud case that they got going over there in Minnesota. Oh boy, we're gonna see how this situation goes. Yeah, it's not. Well, appreciate the news, Lauren. Thank you. She said, "You're not going very well. Good luck." I appreciate it. Yeah, we did have to check all that. So, I don't know. What evidence do they have on her mortgage fraud? Why did he handpick a prosecutor, a first timer? That's my question. But I mean, if it's the second time that they did it, maybe the first prosecutor he wasn't feeling, I'm guess. So he was like, the second time we'll try, we'll pick our own. But they were like, nah, bro, that's unlawful. You can't do that. So, I mean, maybe it only got thrown out because of the second time, but then the first time, why did it get thrown out? If it got thrown out twice, what was the first reason then? Yeah, that's the question. Rejects attempt to revive fraud case. So that means the first time they threw it out, what was the reason why they threw it out the first time? Which is the real question, because then that would be, well, I don't know, man. We're gonna see how it goes, because yeah, that might just give Minnesota some steam to be like, all right, cool. Well, if we can get her off, then we can get, Omar off on the fraud case that they got against her. So this is gonna be interesting to see if Omar get off on her fraud case. Boy, oh boy, and I mean, and that was in New York. Letitia James, she's in New York, so they just got what's his name? Don't mess with the Zohan. They just got him elected mayor over there, so it's finna be some screw you Trump going on over there in New York. They like, nah, bruh, we got this on lock over here. We blue over here, son. We blue over here. You stay your red ass over there, So I can kind of see that coming. So who knows what this is gonna be? I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, let's get back to what we're talking about. So, gentleman here said he is enjoying communist Vietnam, and let's see how he feels the freedom and everything is going. But remember, he mentioned that it seems like it's really capitalist. He seems like it's really capitalist over there in Vietnam, even though it's a communistic state. But let's continue.
To be a very capitalistic one-party country. He's got a good education system. The people are productive. Boy, there was a horn. Anyway, I think in the long term that Vietnam's going to be and stay a wonderful place. I don't see a lot of change in the social situation, but boy, do I ever see big changes in the economic situation. I think the future is definitely here in Southeast Asia.
Right. Okay. He said they got a good education system. So what is this with the communism places having good education system? But he said they're really capitalist, though. Even though they call it communist, he's like, from my point of view, they really capitalist. And looking about how old he is, he lived in America, back in the day. You know what I mean? He probably was born in, I don't know, probably was born in the 60s. So he probably lived through America in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. So his understanding of a capitalist system in America, he's looking at that, and he's looking at Vietnam. He's like, this is giving me old town vibe, old town feelings, except for the whole fact that I can't say nothing about, the government on the internet, else they gonna, come down and lay the smack it downeth on me, you know what I mean? Basically, give me the rock bottom and, give me the good old, But other than that, I'm pretty sure he's getting that feeling like, they say it's communist, but I'm feeling like this is more of a capitalist society. So there's Vietnam for you. So we've had people speak on Vietnam. Next, we are going to go into, where we at? We're going into this guy. All right, so this gentleman right here, he went to the Soviet, or I shouldn't say Soviet. He went to Moscow. I believe he went to Moscow, if I'm not mistaken. And he actually spoke to older people who lived in the USSR and asked them questions about what life was like living in that time. So we're going to go and see what type of response that he gets from people who can tell you who actually grew up and lived in a communist civilization, or society, I should say, civilization. People who actually lived in a communist society, and see what their viewpoint on it was, actually coming from what they lived through as opposed to what people research and put out. So we're going to see what the difference is and see if people had good experiences or bad experiences. So let's go ahead and take a look. So we got this guy right here. He's going to go in. He's going to speak to some people about what exactly it was like living in USSR. So here we go.
Zhana Georgievna, who was enjoying the afternoon on a park bench.
Так, как ваша жизнь была в СССР?
All right, so right here, let me see. Maybe I could change it to the subtitles to be... Oh, no, we can't do that. All right, so basically, they're speaking in Russian. I'll go ahead and read it to you. So he asked her, how was life living growing up in the USSR? She said, fine. Everything was good. So, I'm going to have to stop and pause it for you to give you the rundown.
Нормально, все хорошо было. И почему? Какие аспекты? Потому что я работала. Да. Я была...
He asked her, why was everything fine? Why was everything good? She said, because I worked. I was young. You know what I mean? She was like, everything was gravy, baby. She was like, wasn't nothing to worry about.
Молодая. Получала, в пределах того, чего получали в основном все советские инженеры. И работа у меня была хорошая, так что у меня...
So it sounded like she was an engineer. She said she learned about the same as the other Soviet engineers. So she said everything for me, she said everything was good. Everything for me was fine. So she worked and she seemed like she was an engineer. Maybe she was a covert feminist. I don't know, but I ain't gonna put that on her. But as you can see, she's, older. This video is 6 years old. So it doesn't change the fact that, the USSR happened when the USSR happened. But she's speaking on her time. She said she was young whenever she was growing up in USSR. So everything for her was good. So far, so good. So let's continue.
А вы считаете, что жизнь была лучше тогда или прямо сейчас? Вы знаете, я не могу сравнивать. Есть...
All right, so he says, was life better back then, or is life better now? And she's like, I can't really compare them to, both of us, because she was younger back then as opposed to now she's older. So she can't really compare the systems, because systems will be different depending on if you're younger, if you're older growing up in them. But let's see what she says.
И за, и против. Но тогда как-то все воспринималось более в хорошем свете, смотря с этого.
So she said that they were both, she said system back then, she said it was good and bad. Of course, it had its bad aspects to it, give and take. But she said it had brighter character. There was a brighter side back then. So maybe things were like more kinder, more nicer, more friendly back then as opposed to what they are today.
А что делали люди в Советском Союзе со своим свободным временем? Что делали? Много чего делали. И в театры ходили, и в походы ходили по субботам, по воскресеньям, и собирались вместе, и общались очень много. Нормально.
Okay, so we asked her, what did the Soviet people do on their free time? She's like, we did everything. Same thing that normal people would have done that we know of. They went to theaters, they went camping, they talked a lot. And you got to think back then, you do have to think there was no cell phones, there was no computer, no technology. So socializing, communicating, and being somewhere and being in the moment was a big thing. If you went somewhere, and if somebody left the crib and you tried to call them and then they left the house, you couldn't get in touch with them because the landline phone was the only way to reach them. And once they left, you got to be like, damn, maybe I'll see them out and about, maybe I won't. It just depends. So the life was different, but she said that they did the same thing everybody else did: theaters, camping, hanging out with friends, talking to people, just doing stuff that normal people did. So therefore it didn't seem like the ideology that we somewhat have as far as what we see. Her perspective so far seems to be really freaking good of the Soviet Union and when she was growing up in it. So let's keep going.
И многие люди на Западе часто говорят про дефициты экономические в Советском Союзе. Как доступна была еда или продукты? Единственное, не знаю, я никогда не голодала. У меня...
Okay, so he said that he said a lot of people in the West, we hear about the economic shortage dealing with the USSR. And he said, what was food like in products and things of that like? She was like, nothing. I mean, she said, I never went hungry. You know, she said, we didn't really have no issues with food and hunger. So on the USSR side, this is her experience.
У меня было все, что я хотела. Ну, может быть, там черные и красные икры, но они все равно были на столах, когда были праздники. Да. Так что это было.
Да. All right, so basically she was like, look, we never went hungry. She had everything that she ever wanted. I mean, maybe they didn't have black and red caviar. Only like oligarchs can afford real black caviar, to be honest. But she was like, it wasn't even that bad. It's really it wasn't no issue as to, you know, what you were taught. I had a good life. It wasn't nothing strange or crazy going on as far as starving. The economics was good. We had everything that we needed. There was nothing that was out of the ordinary, out of the norm. So basically comparing her experience to what the other guy was showing us in Cuba is like completely the opposite. So these two communist countries are the opposite. The guy in Cuba, his communism is like brutal, and I think his was 4 years ago. His was 4 years ago because he was wearing a mask. He was COVIDing it up. So when we looked at his perspective from like the COVID era to around the COVID era, and this is what, 4 years old? 6 years old, so about the same time. She's speaking on, you know, USSR from back then. She's like, we wasn't starving. The economics was good. We got to go out and chill and have fun. I worked. I was engineering. Like everything was good. So far so good.
Скажите, пожалуйста, как были 90-е годы для вас?
All right, here we go. So here's the $1 million question. All right, so Soviet Union dissolved in 1991. So here's the $1 million question he's asking. What were the 90s like for you? So now he's like, all right, now we're getting out of the Soviet Union. Everything we had was in the Soviet Union. It dissolved in 91. He's like, what was the 90s like? Let's see what she says.
90-е годы были тяжелые. Тяжелые. Потому что, ну, во-первых, я уже не работала, во-вторых, был сплошной дефицит всего, абсолютно полки были пустыми. Изгалялись кто как может, кто куда ездил. И по родственникам, которые были не в Москве, ездили туда, и картошку покупали, и что-то еще, что-то там, если можно было бы покупать. Все было нормально.
Okay, so she has the polar opposite answer. So her answer is when the Soviet Union dissolved in the 90s, she said it was hard. She said, first of all, she was no longer working. So that was number one. Then she mentioned that the store shelves were always empty. It was harder to find food. Store shelves were empty. People were doing everything they could just to get by. You know, they would go see families and stuff and like trade them or trade them potatoes or get like, you know, stuff that they had gotten from different families outside of the city and stuff like that. So in rural areas, you know, the cities were tight, but the rural areas, people probably still were able to do what they wanted to do or live the way they needed to live because they probably grew their own stuff and had their own cattle and ranches and gardens and stuff like that. However, she's saying that when it dissolved, it got hard. For her, from her experience in life, the 90s, the dissolving of the Soviet Union, it was hard. So we're hearing it a little different. So this is interesting to see how this, you know, from this perspective on how things change, it's hard coming out of the Soviet Union. And that's one thing I've always thought. I've always thought that when you're changing from a capitalist to a communist or a communist to a capitalist society, I always figure the transition, that 10 to 20 year transition is always going to be extremely painful because you're completely changing the whole social society of life. And I think from my research and understanding, it seems like that's always the case. However, in Cuba, it just seems like a hellhole the whole entire time. But from what I've looked into, it seems like, I could be wrong because, you know, still research can never stop. Transitioning from a whole different kind of society, it seems like those first 10 or 20 years are usually the most harsh and painful to deal with, because the transition is like, what are we doing? You know, it's kind of like now. Right now, in America as a country, we're transitioning into a whole new era, this AI era. And this era is so much of a big transition. It's almost like, I believe is going to bring on the Great Depression 2.0, hell, probably 3.0, because the transition is going to be so major that people are not going to be ready for how work is going to change things. Because it's kind of like how somebody mentioned back in the 90s, computers got put on the scene for the first time. Because I can remember in the 90s learning how to type on computers in like the mid 90s. And we had the big blocky screens. Like my computer monitor screen was this big. Not the screen. Like, this is the screen. Here's the front of the screen and here's the back of the monitor. Like, that's how fat the monitor was. It was a big blocky thing for just the top part. And then the hard drive, the rectangle hard drive part was big. It was like a big thing where you would put all your, motherboard, and it was a big thing. You had floppy disk and all that stuff. It was just a different time. But that transition into going and having the computers in the 90s and going all the way up to like 2015. From there, we didn't have no Netflix. There was no streaming. There was no YouTube. No Spotify, no none of that. You saw all these things slowly but surely get added on along the way, which means is that there was new companies that were not a thing when I was a kid. There was no Netflix. HBO was a thing, but it was cable back then. There was no cell phones. There was no cell phones, no text message or ringtones, all that stuff. There was, no wireless. There was nothing wireless because there was no internet. That didn't exist. So then there was a lot of companies that didn't exist. Google didn't exist. Yahoo, Yahoo didn't exist because there was no computer. No, Amazon didn't exist. Again, anything you can think of streaming wise didn't exist. The only thing that really exists, as a matter of fact, hell, Apple barely existed. We had Macintosh. Well, I guess you could say Apple did. We had Macintosh back then, Microsoft, maybe Linux, but I'm not too fond on how that works. But I know we had Microsoft for sure. But a lot of these companies that you see now, these big tech giants, Tesla and all that stuff, none of that existed. As time went on, and the internet finally became a thing. So I remember when the internet became a thing, and you had AOL, America Online, and you had the dial-up where you had to actually plug into the landline phone just to be able to access the internet. And if somebody called you or got on the landline phone, it would knock you off the internet. And it took forever just to get on the internet. If you, for example, like right now, you got Google Chrome or whatever, or whatever it is that you use, whatever web browser that you use, you click on your browser, and for you flip your computer up and you are already on the internet. Right? You turn the computer, and then if you wanted to get on Google, right, or whatever web browser you use, you just double click it. Well, back then, just to get on the internet on AOL, you would click it, and you would sit back and wait. And let me give you the sound. Let me give you the sound you would hear. For those of you who probably don't know what the sound was to get on AOL, let me show you what it sounded like to get on AOL. The sound of getting on AOL. Let me show you what we experienced back in the day. This is what it took just to get on the internet. Here we go. I'm going to show you right here. All right, here we go. Let's see if they got it right. I think this might be it. Here it goes. Oh, crap. Come on, here we go. So whenever you would get on the internet, you would click on AOL, which would be like your web browser for Google, for Google Chrome or whatever you use. This is what we would hear. Nope, that's not it. Nope, that's not it. Wrong one. 1 second. Let me find it for you real quick, because I got to get you to understand what it sounded like. The dial-up. Here it is. I got it. This is it. This is the dial-up. All right, so you had to use your landline phone. You didn't have Ethernet cords back then. You couldn't plug into the Ethernet cord. So this is the sound that we would have. So you double click to get on the internet, boom, boom, you're America Online. And before the internet came up, this is what you had to go through. Now you're connected. That's how it connected. Then once it connected, then you had to wait for the screen to load up. He said ear rape. But that was the norm. That's what it was like. If you want to see, and if somebody called your house or somebody picked up the phone in the house, it would knock you off the internet. You have to start the process all over again. And once it connected, it wasn't quick. It wasn't like, oh, I'm on. It's like, no, because it connected. Now it has to pull up the desktop. Now it has to pull up the initial, desktop screen and then pull up the web browser. Then the web browser got to load up and all that. It was just, that was the norm. That's how you get on AOL. And it was just, it was just a whole different time. That's how it was. But anyway, let's get back to this lady real quick, because I want to go ahead and get through this at least. I ain't got much time left. So again, this lady, she was talking about her time in the 90s going through the USSR, and from her understanding, from what she said, the USSR in the 90s was very difficult, but for her, the Soviet Union, the USSR prior to the 90s were very good. But let's hear her continue on her situation. Here we go.
Да, наверное, я могу представить. Я на самом деле историк, советский историк, так что да, это наш проект. Если вы историк, то вы знаете. Да. И проблема в том, что многие на Западе этого не знают. И это проблема. Дай Бог им никогда этого не узнать. Да. Дай Бог. Да.
Oh, she mentioned something about she hope people never notice. It's our project, guess I can imagine. But the problem is that many in the West.
Западе этого не знают, и это проблема.
Дай
Бог им никогда этого не узнать. Да. Дай Бог. Да.
You're saying she's hoping a lot of people didn't know. How'd you get your scar on your forehead?
У меня еще два вопроса. Многие считают, что демократии вообще не было в Советском Союзе.
Вы знаете, я с политическими вещами не сталкивалась, но то, что мне нужно было и можно было, и даже не можно, а вот то, что я хотела, я делала.
Отлично.
Я делала. У меня все было. То, что я хотела, я получала.
А если бы вы могли бы что-то восстановить от советских времен?
От советских времен?
Да, а то что это
Я бы хотела восстановить доброжелательность людей. Люди сейчас стали очень злые, видно, очень устают. И, в общем, не такие доброжелательные. Может быть, это просто уже на старости я это понимаю. Я не знаю, как это, да. А восстановить хорошее здравоохранение, лучшее было оно, да, и учеба. Вот смотришь сейчас на свою молодежь и понимаешь, что они учатся не так, как учились мы.
Да.
Okay, so he basically said that if you could bring back something, one thing back, he had two more questions. I forget what the first question was. What was your first question? He asked her, what did he ask her? He asked her about politics, but she wasn't really into politics. She couldn't answer that question because she didn't get the politics. But she said she got to do whatever she wanted to do. She never really got held back from doing anything. She was like, I wasn't really held back. I got to do whatever I wanted to do. So everything was good for me. She was like, there wasn't really nothing holding me back. Everything I wanted to do, I could do, and I did do. Then he asked her, what was something that you could bring back as far as the Soviet Union? Her thing was, she said that she wished that she could bring back how kind-hearted people were, which is interesting. She said from the USSR, she said people were way more kind-hearted, And also she wishes that she feels like today they're, you know, more rude and more mean. And she also said that she wishes they could bring back the healthcare and education. She said there was better healthcare and education in the Soviet Union. She said the kids weren't focused on studying how we used to back then. She said maybe because I'm old now, but like she said, just, you know, healthcare and education, which they could bring back, and the kids don't seem like that they study as much as they used to back in Soviet Union. So there's an interesting give or take to get from that, because, you know, hearing it from someone who lived it from her perspective is interesting. So that's hers. So now we have another woman here that he comes across. Now for her, looking at her, I don't know if you can say if this lady is rich or wealthy or well off, or I don't know what class you would say she was in. Maybe because she was the engineer, was she up here? Was she like a very classy woman? That's, you know, did she have money, or was she poor? That's up for interpretation. But now we're going to go on to the next woman, or the next person that he interviews, I should say. And this woman doesn't seem like she's as wealthy. It seemed like she was just a regular, you know, regular class woman, lived as a regular class person, kind of looking at where she is and how she looks, but that doesn't mean anything. And we're going to see her perspective on the USSR and see if she had anything good to say or bad to say, or if she had the same experience or what. We're going to check that out. And it says, I'm surprised she didn't say she'd bring back Comrade Stalin. He's had a bit of a rival in Holy Russia lately. Oh, yeah. He's had a bit of revival. I said rival. Good Lord. He's had a bit of a revival in Holy Russia lately. Interesting. The education in the Soviet Union, and this is, how do I say your name? Peterster? I don't know how to say your name. I'm going to call you P. P said, the education in the Soviet Union for mathematics brought my academic discipline forward significantly. They were in competition with France and the U.S. for developing math in the 20th century. Interesting. All right. So, math is a universal language. So I could actually understand that. That makes a hell of a lot of sense. You can't speak different languages when you do math. You know what I mean? You can do math differently to get to the same to get to the same answer, but math is going to be universal. So I could understand that. That would make sense. You can't change numbers. 1 means 1, 5 means 5. You know what I mean? So I could actually understand that. It's interesting. And you lived in the Soviet Union, so you were actually in the Soviet Union during the time. What year were you in the Soviet Union? As far as like, what was your school years during the Soviet Union, if you don't mind me asking? P. I'm gonna have to call you P because I don't know how to say your name. Pedester. P-store. P-store. I can't say it. All right, well, I'm gonna wait on you to answer that. I'm gonna go ahead and pull up this next one because I only got so much time left on this. All right, let's see. So here's the next lady. He went up and he asked her the same questions, and let's see what she says about
the same thing. Надежда Ивановна.
У нас была очень хорошая, я считаю, нормальная жизнь в том плане, что люди друг с другом больше общались, добрее были друг к другу. Так что вспоминаю по-хорошему.
А вы считаете, что жизнь была лучше тогда, или вот прямо сейчас, или...
Вы знаете, по-разному можно считать. Экономически тогда труднее было, а сейчас экономически легче. Ну, тоже по-разному. Одни разбогатели невозможно как, а другие, вот как были, от зарплаты до зарплаты, так и живут. Поэтому не могу сказать, что очень улучшила жизнь. Но...
Okay, let me stop it there. So basically she said that life was better back then. She said people were nicer. People were way nicer back then, and things was better. She says she remembers it fondly. She's like, I remember it fondly. It was good. Like growing up and living there, she said it was good. He asked her economically, how were things? Was it better back then or now? She says back then, economically, it was tougher. She said, however, I mean, it's still tougher now, but I mean, there were still people that got ridiculously rich back then. as you have now, just economically, it's still tougher and it's still tough like it is now. But I mean, you can almost, the way she was describing it, like it's still somewhat the same, but back then economically it was tougher. However, the people that she was living with, or the people at the time, were much kinder, much nicer, and more social back then. So economically, she said it was a little bit harder, but people were still more kind and nicer, which is the same thing the last woman said. The last woman said the same thing. People were way more nicer and way more kinder, which is interesting. And yeah, she said there were still ridiculously people that got rich, but you know, you still got rich people and you still got poor people, but it wasn't, you know, I guess for her, in the way she grew up, it wasn't too much of a difference. So it seems the same. All right, let's see what we got here. P says, I didn't live there personally, but my research led me to study their math, like Coloma Grove, if I'm spelling it right. From 2013 to 2017, I'm a Orthodox Christian, so I love Russia from afar. It's PD store rhymes with poor. It's PD store. PD store. PD store rhymes with poor. Am I saying it right? It's PD store. PD store. PD store. Am I saying it right? PD store? PDS store? PDS store. PDS store. PDS store. I think I'm saying it right. PDS store. Okay. So you didn't live there personally, but you study it a lot. Okay, well, it's interesting. Okay, you like to study it, and you are Orthodox Christian, so you love Russia from afar. That's what's up. That's what's up. That's what's up. So from 2013 to 2017, you led me to study for the math. Okay, heck yeah. All right, I can understand that for sure, for sure. Like I said, I studied the Bolsheviks revolutions. I've did a whole stream on it and to understand how it became the USSR, and did the whole research and everything like that on it. So I was always curious as to find out, you can study how communism is and the transition, which it seems like was one of the roughest and harsh things. And it seems like that's the hardest part, is the transition from one society to the next. But to hear people who live through it is what I always try to find. And, you know, that's going to be, you know, their point of view and their existence, and seeing how they actually experienced it and what they knew from it. And it seems like, you know, so far, these people somewhat have a congruent perspective on living there. But let's continue and see what else this lady's got for us. There you go. All right. PDS store. PDS. There we go. PDS. I got you. Here we go.
Отношения между людьми стали хуже, потому что все стали как-то каждый о своих интересах заботиться. Раньше был коллектив. Вот, поэтому, ну, не знаю, я ни то, ни другое не могу уж очень хвалить, но вспоминаю с удовольствием то время, когда жили в Советском Союзе. Считаю, что мы хорошее потеряли.
А многие люди на Западе...
Что мы хорошее. С удовольствием то время, когда жили в Советском Союзе. Уж очень хвалить, но вспоминаю с удовольствием то время, когда жили в Советском Союзе. Считаю, что мы хорошее потеряли.
Okay, so she believes that living in the Soviet Union, they lost something good. So her upbringing is positive from the Soviet Union. She has a positive upbringing from the Soviet Union, especially coming from the collectiveness and group of people together and everything. Yeah, economy, she said it was tougher, but she does believe that, you know, the system that she lived under, she said it was good. So she feels really good for you. Thank you, Dr. Raspberry, for the follow. Appreciate the follow, Dr. Raspberry, on the YouTube. Yes, sir. Thank you. Appreciate you. All right, so let's see what else we got.
Многие люди на Западе говорят часто про экономические дефициты, как вы сказали. А как доступна была еда или продукты?
Доступна была еда, мы же голодными не были.
Да.
Нормально было. Сейчас лучше снабжение, лучше в магазинах, я ничего не говорю. Но морально тяжелее.
Okay, interesting. So he said in the West, we hear about the economic shortages of food and stuff like that. She said, we never went hungry. Food was good. Food was available. She says now The stores are better supplied, no doubt. They're better supplied now than what they used to be for sure. But what did she say? Morally, now it's harder. I think that's what she said. But morally, now it is harder.
Я ничего не говорю. Но морально тяжелее.
See, yes, but morally, it's more difficult. So the morale has changed. So she said there was better morale back in USSR. She says now the morale has changed and it's more difficult morally now, more secular nowadays outside of USSR. But back then, food was good. There was probably, she said, food was available, but clearly she's saying that there was less of a selection. I'm gonna assume, because she says now it's more supplied, but maybe that's just with times changing and stuff like that. I'm just assuming. But she said there was food. She said she ain't never went hungry. She said we ain't go hungry like you probably heard. She was like, no, we were good. So we ate, we had food and all that good stuff. Times change. Yes, better supplied now, but we're good. Let's continue.
Расскажите, пожалуйста, немножко про...
Here we go. Sorry, I didn't mean to stop it again, but here we go. The big question. USSR dissolved in 91. So here's the big question. Please tell me a bit about the 90s. Let's see what she says. The last lady said it was hard. Let's see what this lady says.
90-е годы.
90-е годы ужасные были. Ничего не скажешь. Было очень тяжело. Была растерянность, потому что действительно одно государство менялось на другое. Вот. Трудности были большие, но преодолели. Сейчас уже лучше жизнь стала.
Okay, there it is. She said that the 90s were terrible. She was like, that shit hurt. She was like, ouchies. She said that it was transitioning from one government to the next, which is what I kind of came to the conclusion to. It seems like when there's a transference of government or a system or whatever regime from communist to social, communist to capitalist or capitalist to communist, I think, from my research, I think that transition brings about pain and, you know, suffering and death and economic hardship, because this is transition that you're going through. She said it was hard, it was terrible. She said, but now life's gotten better after, you know, the whole, because I think it's always going to be a 10 to 20 year period. Whenever you go through that transition, it's always going to be the worst part. Kind of like the Bolsheviks revolution. From 1917 to about 1937, 20 years, maybe 1940, 20, 25 years in that sense. Things got better, I would say, maybe by the time Stalin got in, because I think Stalin got in around the 40s or 50s or whatever. I think that's when things got better, but that transition period was fucking hell. You know what I mean? It's always hell for that transition period. And I don't mean to laugh, because a lot of bad stuff happens in the transition period, but that's what it seems like though. So they both had the same response. They both had the same response. And even that lady in Vietnam, in the video I did yesterday, she mentioned, you know, when they had to go and deal with the communists of Vietnam coming in, that transition into communist Vietnam was extremely bad and extremely brutal. That transition she mentioned, it was a no-go. Now, Cuba, on the other hand, it's bad all around. It's like it never stops. That's what it seems like with Cuba. It seems like Cuba has it bad non-stop. That's the thing I'm noticing. So she's saying things are better now over here in Russia, but as far as like Cuba goes, Cuba has seems like they haven't had anything let up yet. It's just been brutal the whole way through. Pediester. I got it. I said that with ease. Pediester. I said it with ease. The 90s were a disaster, horrible. Boris Yeltsin brought in an American capitalist who tried bringing the U.S. away from communism all at once. A bunch of criminals or oligarchs, quotation, took over. Oh, USSR. Okay, let me say that again. So the 90s were a disaster. Boris Yeltsin brought in an American capitalist who tried bringing the USSR away from communism all at once. A bunch of criminals or oligarchs took over. Yeah, I think trying to do it all at once, I think that's where you're going to have the issue. I think it has to be a transition. But then again, what do I know? But I think that's I think that's what it is. And of course, you're going to have a bunch of people going to use that as an opportunity. They're going to see an opportunity to, make out like a bandit and get rich as hell. Because at the end of the day, the true story of it is, in any kind of situation like that, all wars are bankers' wars. So you always got to pay attention to banks. If you can figure out what the bankers were doing in that transition period, anytime there's a big transition or something going on, or a war, World War I, II, revolution here, whatever going on, just go find some bankers. And you're going to see that they funding the hell out of whatever war goes on, because they say you never let a good war go to waste, and you never let a good crisis go to waste. So follow the bankers. That's where you're going to find your answer 10 times out of 10, for sure. But let's continue on what she said. Yep, the bread stores charged 10 times the price for bread when they implemented the sudden change. See? So therefore, somebody made out like a bandit. Somebody pockets got extra chunky. Somebody had some super chunky pockets. It was making out like a bandit. It was just like throwing money everywhere. All right, let's go ahead and finish this up real quick. Here we go.
Еще один вопрос. Если бы вы хотели восстановить что-то из советских времен, то что это было бы?
Восстановить прежде всего взаимоотношения между людьми. Они были добрее, сердечнее. Ну и, наверное, много мы потеряли, потому что слом произошел государственный, и часть мы потеряли хорошего, то, что было, а в новом оно еще не пришло.
Lastly, we met a man named...
All right, so she said the same thing. He asked her the $1 million question, which is, what would you bring back if you could bring back one thing from USSR? And she said the same thing the other lady said. She said the kindness, the niceness of the people, the collective, the community of the people, everybody being nice to each other and cordial again. She said that's gone. And like I said, this video is 6 years old. Yes, this video is 6 years old. So 6 years ago, we are rolling pretty good in social media, I would say. Not picking up super steam because it's pre-pandemic, but the internet is nice and thriving and rolling. Cell phones is everywhere. People are slowly are on social media. People are still having that, So I would say the internet had a big play part of like destroying the community. This is what I would say. The internet had a pretty big play on destroying of the togetherness of what they're talking about. Because when they grew up, there wasn't no internet. There wasn't none of that. So, I would say that a big destruction of what they're missing as far as cordial and bringing people together and that togetherness and oneness would be the advent of the internet. Internet turned everybody into pieces of shit, if I just say it a nice way. It's just what it is. Ain't no other way you can say it. I mean, that's just what it is. There's no other way, man. Internet brought out the bad side of everything. It's like once you find out you can make money off the internet, bro, it just got grimy. Ugh.
Goddamn.
All right, so let's see. He has one more, but I didn't really. This is one more guy. He had an answer. I didn't really like his answer. Not that it wasn't up to mine, but it's kind of like he didn't stay on topic of the question. He kind of like drifted off and was saying too much. But I can give you the sum of what he said. This guy right here, I can kind of wrap it up for you. And in a nutshell, he misses the USSR. He liked it more back then. That's his motherland. That's his country. That's his home. That's what he knows as life and stuff like that. He said like his body is here, but his soul is in the USSR. You know what I mean? Like that's where he grew up. That's what he knows. That's what he loves. So he had a good reflection on the USSR. You know what I mean? So yeah, his thing was really big on the USSR. So he was big on loving the USSR.
Советском Союзе. Не в России.
Whoops. Let me see. Did he say anything else that was important? I think that was what it was. Yeah, he was big on USSR. But he says, he does believe everybody had different experiences, but, most part, his experience there was, for the most part, he loved the USSR. That was his his love, his home. Let's see. I think we got this woman, but I feel like this dude was guiding her in the wrong way of how she answered questions. I didn't like the way he interviewed her. He sucked. I got one video, but I don't like the way the guy interviewed her. I thought it was trash. Let's see. Here we go. All right, so the same dude, but he's talking to a different group of people, elderly people. And shout out to to elder people. Elder people are very important. You got to remember, they have a library in their brain of memories and stories and things that they were taught of people before them, especially people like this. These people of this age or older, you know what I mean? Like old people like this, they have in her brain is a damn library of wealth and knowledge. Because the things that she learned, you know, she lived in a time where you had to memorize a phone number. You had to memorize people's names. You had to memorize, you had to know how to read a map. You know, nothing told you what to do. You had to use your intelligence. So your brain power was a hell of a lot stronger. There probably wasn't as much GMOs in the food that she ate growing up. Hell, she probably had a lot less McDonald's because she saw McDonald's be created. If there's a McDonald's in Russia. You know what I mean? It's a different way. And whatever she was taught from her parents, you know, the date of her parents might be from the 30s or 1920s or whatever. And whatever her parents taught her, she learned from her grandparents who taught her parents who were probably born in the 1800s. So you can only understand the wealth of knowledge that people like this have that you should always be grateful for and take the time to learn from them and don't think that they're just all crazy. It would be foolish of you. But anyway, I'm going to go over a couple of these. I'm going to move on quickly. He talked to a few other people. And this one, he spoke to, let's see what he talked. That guy went too long. Let's see, childhood. We'll go with this lady. She spoke on her childhood and community. Let's see what she said about her. You know what? We'll go with her first, then we'll go to the other one. This one is education and dentistry and food. So let's see what he asked. She said she finished school and got higher education in Moscow. So let's see how everything was under Soviet rule. All right. So all this was under Soviet rule. So she got her education and she finished school and got a higher education. She lives in Moscow, but all that was under Soviet rule. So let's see exactly what else that she has to say living under Soviet rule growing up.
Извините, при советской, так сказать, власти. Ничего плохого, ну потому что, наверное, может, мы были молодыми, поэтому какого-то негатива. Единственное, я переживала, что вот я не могу съездить за границу. Единственное, Чехословакия у меня был выезд в 2005 году, а так... Потом наверстала все это пущенное.
А что вы можете сказать?
Okay, so she said everything was pretty good. There wasn't too much negativity. She said maybe because she was young, she couldn't tell the difference, but she said she couldn't go abroad. So she couldn't really travel far. I think she said the only place she went to was Czechoslovakia. I might be butchering that word. Let me see if I can find that word. What was it? Czechoslovakia, she said? It was some word. No, I can't find it. But she did but she did say she traveled to a place, but it wasn't very far. She said she made up for lost time in 2005 for the time she couldn't go abroad. So now he's going to ask her about the healthcare system. Let's see what she says.
Сказать про систему здравоохранения, которая была, и образование.
Образование было, я считаю, отличное. Пусть мы там долбили, начинали с карандашка, потом перо там чернильное, вот это все. Но зато у всех был нормальный почерк, а это тренирует усидчивость, как бы сосредоточенность. В основном учились у нас все в классе хорошо. Вот. Здравоохранение, тогда оно меня как-то мало касалось. Вот, поскольку. Единственное, я помню, что стоматология была такая убогая, потому что материалов не было хороших. Но, тем не менее, зубы я свои сохранила. Платно ходила, лечила. Вот. Знаете, если все так хаять, все, что было раньше, это себя опустошает просто. И все.
А как?
Okay, so basically, let's see, he asked her, education was good, healthcare, she said, couldn't really ask her too much. She was younger, so younger with healthcare, she couldn't really give too much an opinion on that. It mentioned the dentist. She said the dentist was straight trash. She was like, the dentist was ass. They didn't have very good utensils to use, so she preserved the teeth and was able to fix them for a fee later on. So dentistry was not good. Education, she said, was excellent. Education was excellent. So seems like the USSR gave good education. They gave good penmanship. She wrote with pencil, pen, and ink. So she's used to writing with penmanship and all that good stuff. So that's what she mentioned. And P.D. Esther says, where are you? Dang it. Let me find. Where are you? What are you talking to me on? Which are you on? Are you on YouTube? Where are you? Oh, you're on YouTube. Okay, here you go. They remember the 90s with pain. Even my fellow Orthodox Christians are taking years to recover from the corruption in the 90s and infections from Western individualism. Oh, no, not the infections of the Western individualism. No. Oh, my goodness. Good Lord, what did we do to them? We didn't do them that bad, did we? Let's see. Can I find it? Let me make sure I got your whole thing because I don't want to miss out on it. Yeah. So remember the 90s with pain. Even my fellow Orthodox Christians are taking years to recover from the corruption in the 90s and the infection from the... You mean the 90s here in the United States, or you talking about the 90s in Russia? I thought you said you didn't live in Russia. Or USSR. Or I guess it would have been Russia by that time. I thought you said you weren't in Russia. Right? Am I... Let me see. I asked you earlier. I'm surprised to see. No, I didn't live there personally, but okay, so no, you didn't live there personally. Are you talking about the 90s in the United States in the West? Or are you talking about the 90s USSR? They remember the 90s. They remember the 90s with pain. Okay, I'm sorry. I guess I read that wrong. Even my fellow are taking years to recover from the corruption in the 90s. I've studied that culture. Okay, I got you. So you're going from what you studied. Gotcha. Okay. All right, I got you. I'm finally catching up. I'm slow. And known lots of ex-Soviets in church. Okay. So you've got to actually speak to people like yourself personally. That's hella interesting. You've actually spoken to people face to face. Hell, you actually went out there, boots on the ground, and spoke to people. Okay, so they're still. What would you say? Even my fellow, they are taking years to recover from the corruption in the 90s and infection from Western individualism. Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, so then the 90s was really a shitty time because of the transition that they had to go through from it dissolving and then trying to adjust. And that's what that last lady said. The last lady said, well, actually the last two ladies, they was like, shit, 90s was terrible. They was like, it was god awful. So she said it's better now, but it's like making that transition, government falling and things changing over was rough. So you're saying that even the people that your friends from church, they are even dealing with that pain. Okay, so that makes sense. That makes sense, man. That's actually, thank you for being here. I greatly appreciate having your extra input because that actually helps. All right, let me move on to this next lady, and then we'll jump on to the next part. The last one, we did education and food. This one is childhood community. So let's hear about her childhood. Here we go. She's got so many good memories left. Here we go.
Воспоминаний осталось. Качели, чудесные игры во дворе, которые были. Самое главное, детство было очень безопасно. Достаточно много всего было интересного. Самое главное, это, для детей был, например, дворец пионеров. Всегда. То есть очень много было кружков различных, которые, к сожалению, сейчас все платные. Раньше это было, в общем, доступно любому человеку. Кружки, спортивные секции. Короче, было много чего хорошего, чего мы вспоминаем.
А как здравоохранение, образование, например, в Советском Союзе, как это было?
Отлично. Да, и здравоохранение было, и образование было бесплатное для всех. Естественно.
There it is. How was healthcare and education in the Soviet Union? She went without hesitation. She said, great. She said, fucking Tony the Tiger. It was great. It was no hesitation. She looked at him like, bruh, it was all free. We didn't have to worry about nothing. Can you believe that? Free healthcare. Coming over here to the West, you get you hurt anything. You like, don't call the ambulance. Drive me up there. They gonna bill me out the ass for that ride. Like, you don't want nothing. You don't want nothing to do with that. Like, at all. You don't want to have to do nothing of that. So far, education, healthcare was great. Dentistry was ass. So dentist was not good. But healthcare, education, and people were nicer. I mean, so far, people who grew up in the USSR, because if that's all you know, then that's all you know. But then when the transition happened and changed, and they grew out of that and went to a different style of living or a different society of existing, they've all said the same thing. The 90s was hell. Things gotten better, but people are not as nice as they used to be. And I would always chalk that up as well as to the internet as well. So, yeah. And I was not aware of, until I found out later on, how I found that out through doing live streams. So I found this out via live streams. I found out how powerful Western civilization is when it comes to the advent of the internet. Because people like on live streams, when I do live streams, sometimes like before when I first started live streaming, I would do video games and I would talk to people on like Kick and Twitch and stuff like that. And these people would be all over. They'll be like from Turkey and Istanbul and Canada and I mean, just different places all over the world. And I mean, it'd be interesting to like learn this stuff. I think one of my one person, every time I would talk to people, it was me trying to understand their life and their culture. But when it came to me trying to tell them about how things are in the West, it didn't matter where they were. They were like, yeah, we know. And I'm like, how the hell y'all know about the West? Like, I'm, you know, you're way over in, you're way over here in like the Netherlands, and you're over here in Turkey, and you're over here in, and it's like, well, the internet, like the West is like shown on our devices on social media, so we can't help but see you guys. And I was like, really? I was like, damn, like y'all can see what we got going on. Like I would have to look for another country. But from what they told me, it's like, yeah, y'all kind of like blast, you know, your American shit in our face. So like, we know what's going on over there, even if we don't want to know. And I was like, that's hella interesting. And it kind of sucks because I feel like an idiot because I'm like trying to get to know you and your society. And I don't know nothing about you, but you know everything about me. But it's interesting. I didn't know that. When I learned that, I was like, huh, wow, the West has a hell of a reach. PD Esther says there is another good documentary about the good and the bad in the USSR I've seen. It said, and the damage done in the collapse of the USSR in the 90s. Let me look up the documentary name. Be right back. All right, bet. That'd be great because I would like to see that. That would be good because I started at the Bolsheviks revolution. And yeah. Let's just say it gets a little grimy when you start there in that situation. That's usually where I start. I start in the 1917, or actually I figure out how it got to the 1917s, and then I work my way up, you know what I mean, and go all the way through. And it's like rough. Trauma Zone, Jesus, what a name. It is a different style of documentary, and it takes a while to watch, but it goes into depth about why the 90s were so hard on Russians. All right, let me stash that over here so I don't lose it. Trauma Zone, where is it? Is it on YouTube? Where would I find it? I'm gonna see if I can find it. Trauma Zone. Let's see, can I find it on YouTube? Oh, 85 to 99. Oh, yeah, there it is right there. I found it on YouTube. Hello, that's what I'm talking about. All right. Ooh. Oh, yeah, this is long. You got part 1, part 2. Okay, well, that's fine with me. I will sit down and watch this when I get some time, for sure, for sure. Thank you for that. That's going to be interesting to watch. Yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. Let me see what else I got real quick before I have to press on. Okay, I got 2 more to watch, and these are from 2 completely different people. All right? So we have somebody... Oh, damn, I got a few minutes left before I have to shut this stream down. Okay. All right, so here we go. I have an immigrant from Eastern Europe. He is going to give his synopsis on living in a communist country and then his perspective on Westerners on why they want to live in a why they want to live in a communistic country. So he's going to basically say like, look, I'm an immigrant from Eastern Europe. And if you would have told me 10 years ago the West would want communism, so I'd have laughed in your face. But let's hear him say it. So let's just go ahead and check this out. We got two more. We got him. We got an older gentleman after this, which is going to be interesting to hear what he has to say. But pay attention to something he says here in a second, which is going to be something similar to the Cuban guy that we looked at the first time. But let's see what he says. Here we go. Let's let this guy run through.
From Eastern Europe, if anybody would have told me 10 years ago that I'm an immigrant from Eastern Europe, if anybody would have told me 10 years ago that I would come a day where I would live in America and American citizens would be in favor of communism, I would have laughed in their face. What is your take? Why do you think US citizens, man, are in favor of communism in America?
Most people are totally unfamiliar with the actual suffering that people had because of communism. That Americans that have never had to actually understand what suffering is, they are very quick to try to shut down and shout down opinions they disagree with. Do you hate communism? Why? Because of the suffering that your family went through?
I have yet to meet anybody in my home country that was in favor of communism. So let me put it this way. When they came in power, they seized all private property. You had punch card guys to get bread. No meat, no eggs, no stuff like that. And like I said, nobody's in favor of it, except...
So let me ask you a question. Are you thankful that you live in America?
Yeah.
That's what makes you different than them.
I'm an immigrant from Eastern Europe. If anybody...
Okay, so we got an immigrant from Eastern Europe. Now, he looks fairly young.
Would have told me.
Yeah, he looks fairly young. I don't know how old he is, and I don't know what Eastern Europe country would be communistic in the time that he's referring to. So that would be one thing that would interest me. What country could he be referring to as far as, let me see, Eastern Europe, communist countries. What country could he possibly be talking about in Eastern Europe? Because I'm curious as to what he could be saying. Because he's saying completely, he looks, dude look like what, he's 30? 30? 40 would be pushing it. If he was 40, he'd be born in 85. Charlie Kirk just passed away this year. So he's talking to Charlie Kirk. So, he would be born like the mid to late 80s. By this time, the USSR done dissolved. So in 91, so he would have been like, hell, not even 10 years old. So it's kind of hard to see what he's saying. But however, the point of it is his perspective on communists in Eastern Europe, an immigrant from Eastern Europe, he says it's horrible. He said it was complete trash. They had punch cards to get bread and eggs and meat, which is like, damn, to get food, you had punch cards. So his experience, and I can't say his experience was in USSR. However, his experience with communism is bad. The other guy's experience, who was in Cuba, his experience with communism was bad. Then we looked at these people who were in USSR. They had a good experience. They all had great experiences, is what it seemed like. The transition was bad, and then their mindset of what they knew and wanting to bring back certain things from it was the kindness of people. And then you had the older gentleman from Texas who lives in Vietnam now, who's been there at the time 6 years. Him going from capitalist to a Vietnam communist country, he had a good experience. He was like, yo, I'm good over here. Like, you would have think I would be, going crazy, but he's like, I'm having a good time here in Vietnam communist. So he was good. PDS says he would have been young, maybe 10 years old. Yeah, exactly what I said. I would say less than 10 years old by that time. Like, not even 10. Like, he would have been super young. He wouldn't even been 10 years old at all. So I'm just curious as to maybe he's speaking on the transition. You know what I mean? The USSR was incredibly corrupt prior to the collapse as well. It was worse because of how quick the changeover to capitalism was, but the Russian people learned to help each other through it. Yeah, you have to at that point. You ain't got no choice. You better help one another because, the higher ups is just making money like crazy. So maybe he could be speaking on the transition phase. I'm not sure. I don't know. So that's one thing that's kind of hard for me to pinpoint on what he said. But again, his experience with communism was not a good one. All right, so we got one last one, and we have OG. OG steps in the building right here. Check him out. Check out OG. And I think my guy here is one of the, how should I say it? Yeah. Oy vey. That's what I would say. He's one of the oy veys. Well, let's see what he got to say real quick. This will be the last one. I got to dip out of here. So here we go. Let's see what he says. Let me start from the beginning. All right, here we go.
So the Soviets brought a lot of problems. First of all, they confiscated all our houses. They took away all the gold, all the money. My grandfather was a very rich man. They took his house. Why I say Russia was good? Because we lived in the Muslim world. The situation was very restricted. But when the Russians came, our levels, had more rights, prosperity, businessmen, commercial people, salesmen, we had banks. The Soviets confiscated everything, and they didn't allow to follow the tradition, the religious tradition. Outside in the street were Soviet people. Inside the house were Jewish. So the Soviets...
Okay, so there's a new perspective, all right? So we got a new perspective. So he says, now clearly Buddy was for sure up in the USSR. I mean, yeah, he says he had a terrible time. He said they took all our stuff, took all our gold, took our private property, our home. He said it was not good. Now, he said out in public, we were Soviets, but in private, we were Jews. So he was Jewish in the Soviet Union. However, he did catch what he said. He said the Russians, though, when the Russians came in, we had more rights. Things got better when the Russians came in. But the Soviets, the Soviets was on them Jews. The Soviets was on them Jews' neck like... You know what I mean? So from a Jewish perspective in USSR, Buddy did not have a good time at all. They did him dirty. Him and his family did him very badly. And he said the Russians were the ones they had better rights and did a little better. They even had to. And another thing he said, it was more Muslim going on. I don't know if y'all know anything about Muslims right about now, but in America, we got some Muslims out here that's trying to, not trying, they taking over, and they not bullshitting. They, the Muslims over here is trying to implement some serious shit going on over here. And I think we are one step behind the 8 ball a little bit too late because they in all sorts of positions of power. And I think America might be going through USSR 2.0 in the pretty soon future. It's just my honest opinion. I think that's why I do these, because I believe America's heading into communism, unfortunately. But yeah, there's that. And the PDS says he would have been deported to the Jewish state. It is called Jewish Anonymous Oblast or Bureau. I'm about to butcher that word. I'm not going to. Okay. However, but remember what he said, though. He said out in public, we were Soviets. But behind closed doors, we were Jewish. So they did whatever they could to hide who they were to probably avoid being deported. But then again, who knows? You know? Brand Flake says, Let's hear this one more time before I dip out of here, because I got to roll out of this one right here. So here, let's hear him one more time. Here we go.
Brought a lot of problems. First of all, so the Soviets brought a lot of problems. First of all, they confiscated all our houses. They took away all the gold, all the money. My grandfather was a very rich man.
Okay, they took away all the gold. They confiscated everything, houses and gold, no private property. And my grandfather was a very rich, not his father, his grandfather was a very rich man. So he was born into wealth. I'm pretty sure this outfit he got on is expensive here. That hat probably cost a grip.
They took his house. Why I say Russia was good?
Okay, so they took his grandfather's house. And why I say Russia was good. So Soviets wasn't good to the Jews, but he says I can say why the Russians were good. It's interesting. Very interesting. Here we go.
Because we lived in the Muslim world.
We lived in the Muslim world. Now, there's one thing I've studied with between the Jews and the Muslims. They got a very similar faith. They have different, they got different religion, but their faith is similar in a weird way. It's similar, especially when it comes to the law of usury. They got some similarities when it comes to usury. Not all the way similar, but they got some similarities when it comes to how they take care of each other in faith. So it's interesting he actually mentioned that. That's very interesting.
The situation was very restricted. But when the Russians came, our levels, we had more rights, prosperity, businessmen, commercial people, salesmen.
So basically they was able to get back on their grind when the Russians came through. They had more rights. I did a timeline about this. I wish I had time to show y'all, but I don't. So he's basically said when they came in, Soviets didn't have their foot on their necks no more. So we was able to get some business going, get some sales going, basically to thrive once again. And he said the Jews with the Muslims, things were very restricted, which I can believe that because I wish I could show you that timeline, but I don't have time. I got to hurry. But let me finish him up.
We had banks, the Soviets.
Ooh, you hear that? We had banks. Oh, boy. I ain't going to go too deep on that.
Confiscated everything, and they didn't allow to follow the tradition, the religious tradition. Outside in the street were Soviet people. Inside the house were Jewish.
So we couldn't follow our religion, but we did it behind closed doors. So they kept their religion behind closed doors. Look at him. He said, guess what though? Guess what he said? He said, but I'm still on my feet. And guess what? I probably got more money than they wish I ever never had. Boy, said he balling now, boy. He probably looking back at the Soviets as a Jewish dude. He probably looking back at them Soviets like, yeah, y'all took all our shit, but guess what now? Soviets as a Jewish, guess what now?
FYM. Fuck y'all motherfuckers, you know?
Look at his face. He's like, yeah. But as a Jewish though, yo, we got back on our feet. Yeah, we got the banks. Yeah, we got banks. That's right. We got banks. We got media. Yeah. Oy vey. Yeah, we back on our feet. I'm sorry. Oh my goodness. Just that smile he got on his face. Look at him. We are Jewish. Yeah. He's like, you know what time it is. Yeah. We don't run the world. Y'all just say we do. That's conspiracy theory. Oh my goodness. Oh, hold on. Wait. PDS is talking to me. Where you at? The USSR was incredibly corrupt prior to the collapse, as well as it was worse because of how quick the changeover. Oh wait, you already said that. He would have been deported. Oh damn it! Where's your other thing? Hold on, I don't want to leave without you. I can't see. Where is it? Okay, we got that. I'm not able to. Okay, well let me see. Are you talking to me on a different platform? Nope, you're on the same platforms. Yeah, you're on the same platforms. All right, well, let me see. I'm going to try to read what I can see. I don't know why I can't see the whole thing. It says something, grandfather must have been one of the people who supported the Judeo-Bolshevist revolutions in the 20s. Stalin was paranoid of them because of Trotsky. That is a fact, sir. I can agree with you on that one. Yes. His grandfather must have been one of the people who supported. Yes. I can agree with that. You ain't lying. Stalin thought Jews were supporting Leon Trotsky, which they were. I found that out and got paranoid of them and took their possessions and all of it. And it was bad for them since they supported the revolution to escape the pogroms. Oh, you did your research, my guy. Let me give my man a round of applause for this shit here. He not playing around. Yeah, he said, I know this shit. I do my research. You ain't lying. Yeah, them pogroms, they was digging into Jews' ass with those pogroms, boy. They was doing them dirty with those pogroms, wasn't they? Okay, he's on point over here. Stalin thought the Jews were, and yes, they were, because there was bankers, Jewish bankers, who were supporting Lenin and Trotsky. They had Jewish bankers that was backing them, especially during the revolutions in the 1917. So Stalin was right. He was right. They had Jewish backing. They actually had to. Let me show you who this banker was. What was his name? God dang it! What was the Jewish banker's name? Oh, there he goes. Olaf Aschberg. At least this is one of them I could find. I'm gonna pull them up for you real quick. Then I gotta go. This is one of them that I could find right here. Here we go. You ready? I'm gonna give you some of my knowledge. PDS said, yep, they know exactly how to help each other by any means. Where we at? Bam! Here he is right here. Olaf Aschberg was a Swedish banker of Russian Jewish descent who served as head of the Stockholm Bank. He first served the bank for trade unions. From August 18, 1922, he served. He was a leftist sympathizer and helped finance the Bolsheviks during the Russian Revolution. In gratitude, the Bolshevik government allowed Aschberg to do business with the Soviets during the 20s, as he was consistent with the new economic policy. He was also co-director, included prominent Swedish cooperatives and Swedish socialists. So there you were. He was sitting there putting up that money. Let me see. Do we have anything else I can show you before I dip out of here? Where are we at? Where is he? Oh, there was some more stuff I had, but I can't go all the way in. But this is one of the people that I found, which I really never saw anybody else find anything about this guy. But yeah, he did help the 1917 Bolsheviks. He was on the leftist side for sure. And he did have some connections to Lenin, but I think it was through Trotsky instead of Lenin. I'm not 100% sure. I have to find it again, but I believe that. But this was one of the dudes right here that helped out, though. Yeah, he was sympathizing because of the 1917 situation that went down. Let's see. Later than Bolshevik, he was to rebuild the economy, task the workers. Let's see. I can't find everything. But yeah, that's one of the guys, Olaf Aschberg. You can dive in and look into him a little bit more, and you'll find out some more stuff about this guy for sure. But I hate to run, and I wish I could give you more of the show because I do got another part I got to get into, but I ain't gonna be able to make it today because I got stuff I got to take care of. I got to go and be a father. But with that being said, look at how Wall Street also funded the revolution. It was so bad in the Jewish Pale of Settlement. Oh yes. That communist Jews still fight Israel Jews to this day. Some major beef, son. Major beef. Yes, sir. I didn't know that last part. I didn't know that was still an issue while the Jews of Israel were still fighting. Jesus. Man. But hey, the more you know. The Pale of Settlement. Yeah, that was a situation that once that Pale of Settlement went away, it's kind of funny that when the Pale of Settlement started in 1917, the Red October seemed to kick off. But I digress. Let me get up out of here, man. I gotta go, man. Thank y'all for tuning in, man. I appreciate you, PDS and everybody else that showed up. I gotta get up out of here. I will catch y'all Friday. So I won't be back on till Monday. So I'll be continuing on what I didn't get to in the AI segment of the show. And we'll go to the fitness, we'll go to economy, and then we'll go to AI to kind of catch up on the stuff I didn't get to go over. But yeah, we did get over everything in the economy, so we'll probably have a different topic. But with that being said, I will catch y'all on Monday. Hey, y'all have a good weekend. Pay your rent, take care of your family, and be a good person. Don't be a piece of shit. And I'll see y'all on Monday. Have a good weekend. Stay safe. Love y'all, and peace.
Thank you for watching D. Elliott Fitness live stream. Goodbye.
I'd rather be in the studio than in jail or on the street. Talking the wrong, coming off your teeth. Got that one hit to quit and knock you off your feet. It's big art, baby, I'm obsolete. Pockets chunky like cottage cheese. Real nigga, I just gotta be. Smoking weed that don't gotta see. Used to be a hustler prodigy. I love when people say they proud of me. I'm eating good, smoking broccoli. Taking over blocks like Monopoly. Only fucking once, that's my policy. Most of these hoes trying to cause a scene. Like niggas mad they not on the team. See, I got bread, then buy the dream. The game on like, and I got the keys like Jay. My fame won't stop, no, the only thing I'm chasing. The game on like, and I got the keys like Jay. Can't wait no nigga in the booth, playing beats. The game on like, and I got the keys like lane. Riding dirty, but I'm extra clean. Lyrics nice, but I'm extra mean. All-star heavyweight like Wolverine. The bitch learns so she open me. I flip money like Clover G. Gang hustle like TIP. It's hard baby like D.I.G. Acronym like KRIT. The game on lock, and I got the key like Jay-Z. My fame won't stop, but the only thing I'm chasing.